Today I'm here with John from Space Station Gaming with a pro tip video for you, breaking down Sui LaLo at Town Hall 13. What is up, my friends? My name is Echo, and today I am really excited to be here with John from Space Station because he's going to break down Sui LaLo the way that the pros do it. We're truly going to understand how to do this strategy at Town Hall 13 today. John, thanks so much for coming today, man.
No, thanks very much for having me.
I'm really excited about it. I love this new series in the channel, and I love that we're bringing you guys to the scene, showing exactly what you're thinking when you're attacking. But anything that you want to tell us before we get into this first attack? Anything about LaLo, why you love it, or why it's your go-to recently?
I think the reason I like LaLo over other attacks for the most part is the level of control. Sometimes the execution can be a little harder than others because you have more spells because you're using more of the one space spells, your hastes, freezes. There's obviously more deployments because you have more units than in say like a P.E.K.K.A. Smash, a Yeti Smash, an E-Drag, things like that. So I like the level of control. I think is the main reason I like LaLo.
Oh, perfect. I can't wait to hear more about it when we're looking at the attack. So we're looking at right here some attacks done in the Pinnacle Cup, and I want to ask you, John, first of all, this army composition, is it fairly standard across all the attacks that you do, or does it really vary depending on the base?
The core of it stays the same. So you're going to have either 2 or 3 hounds, and usually if you have 2 hounds, you have an extra one in your siege machine, whether it's a blimp or a slammer. And then you've got anywhere from 25 to 30 balloons and 10 or more minions, and then obviously the things that change will be your little funnel troops, and whether you're wall breaking or not wall breaking, or and again the spells pretty similar. You're going to have a poison always. You're usually going to have a skelly unless you have a plan for both the queen and the RC, and then you're going to be raging and freezing. Heals used to be very common with this army, but not anymore with how much DPS is in Town Hall 13. You kind of just need to steamroll through the base. Okay, so you got to get through it quicker rather than slower with healing it along the way. Now, why this base? What's up with this base? Because I see this base and I see something that I'm going to struggle with. But how about you? What did you see here that made you say, I can smash this? What he's tried to do with this base is make it horrendous for ground with that middle island there with the 2 scatters and 4 expos, 2 of which are on ground. But in doing that, he's made it very easy, if you look, to cut a funnel basically. So what I mean by that is you're going to take a portion of the base, and then if you look at the air defenses, they are symmetrical, which is very nice for LaLo because it means you can slowly feed in your LaLo throughout the attack. So what I saw specifically to cut the funnel on this attack was I can use my heroes with I think 1 or 2 freeze from sort of 10:30 on the base. And I can take out the Eagle, I can take out an AD, I can take out Archer Towers. And not only do I take out that whole section, but I also then make a nice path to LaLo. We always use a clock face, so to LaLo either clockwise or anti-clockwise around the base, like in a circular fashion. Okay, well, that makes total sense. Why don't we actually watch this happen, and you could kind of tell us what you're thinking and what's happening as it actually goes down. All right, John, so what's going on right now? What are you thinking? What's your plan? Well, the plan's already been tweaked a bit from those first loon drops because I wanted to drop that mortar, but obviously, as you can see, there was a Tesla farm. So what I'm doing now is dropping my king, and I want my king to run around and clear the entire area around towards 12. And then I'm going to put my queen in with a giant to take some of the heat off her at sort of 11 o'clock there, just by that army camp. And then the royal champion is going to come in, and with the help of a freeze, she's going to solo that whole area. Now, as you can see, it got a little bit awkward because there was a tornado trap there, which I was not expecting. So I had to burn a second freeze, but I always have a couple of freezes just because they're so versatile. Yeah, there's so many different ways you can use a freeze. Yeah, and in these events, it's 1 hit per base, so it's not like you have people scouting. You don't know what traps are going to pop up. So good thinking on your toes right there, which I guess is something you need to do. Yeah, and again, I think all attacks have a little bit of that, but especially LaLo, because when you're doing an entry that's a lot smaller, like just the heroes, you've got to do that. All right. So what you can see now is, I mentioned about the kind of clockwise motion. You can kind of see that I'm feeding things in from. We started, if you look at a clock phase at like 1 o'clock, and then we're working around. We worked around to 3. Now I'm bringing in another hound from there. So it's just working around the base, just loons for each defense.
Yeah, and
just working around like that.
You cleared it out really nicely. Now, can you tell me why dragons in the clan castle?
So there were 2 scatters in the core. So the loons will go down really quick to scatters. You've got to deal with them as soon as you see, even as they're going into the last scatter now, that's when I toned. Because the scatters just destroy loons so quickly. Which is one of the reasons that I would say, I mean, you definitely can't say that LaLo is meta now. Just because you can have a really, really good LaLo plan, and if you mess up one tiny part of it, it's going to be really, really difficult. Whereas, with a hybrid or with a Yeti, in the current meta, you can make mistakes and it's very forgiving. Like, if you get like a nice healer swap or like a nice split, scatters still wreck ground troops too. But you can heal through them. You can freeze them easier. Like with loons, it's like I think it's 2 or 3 shots.
Yeah, you make a small mistake, all your loons are gone. Your attack is dead. But man, that was a dominant example. I really love how you were able to tell us exactly how you cut out the base. It worked well. I know we have 2 more different examples from more of these event wars as well. Why don't we jump into the second? So we're here on the second attack from John in this Pinnacle War, and you can see the army composition changed up a little bit, but the base is very different. John, tell us what you were thinking when you were presented with this base to attack.
What I see straight away is the sweepers are both pointing one way, so often there's a way you can exploit that. How I'm going to do that is take down one of the sweepers, and then LaLo completely, I don't have to worry about the sweepers at all after that. So my royal champion is going to end up taking down 1 sweeper.
Okay.
And then the other thing I notice is that I can take down the enemy royal champion and get a CC pull with my Sui heroes with a wall break. So if you see that, that's going to be at 12 o'clock. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out the whole inside section at 12, the whole inside section at 9 with my royal champion. And then my royal champion ability is also going to get that sweeper that's pointed towards the bottom of the base, which is going to allow me to LaLo into basically nothing apart from an air defense and a scatter from sort of, like the 7, 8 o'clock position round to 6. And this time we're going to go counterclockwise. So the LaLo will then continue around there.
Okay, I'll tell you what, listening to you explain it, you make it sound so simple. And I know firsthand that I struggle severely with this strategy. But listening to you explain it, it sounds so easy. We're going to take a look at this one in a second. But before we do, guys, make sure you sub the channel and ring the bell for daily Clash videos. And if you like these pro tip videos and want to see more, you need to let me know down in the comments and drop a thumbs up on the video if this is something you want to see more of. So we're starting up in the north, as you said, John. Fill us in on what else is going on.
Dropping loons to the mortar here to take that down. And one really good tip that a lot of kind of high-level players will do, but is not hard to accomplish at all, is whenever there are buildings joined to each other. So you saw the builder hut was joined to the mortar there. 2 loons, the splash damage from the loons actually takes down the hut as well. So that can be really good for creating little funnels.
Yeah, getting more value.
I understand that sometimes people see certain attacks and are intimidated by executing them, but that's something that everyone can do. Very, very simple to execute.
I like your use of the freeze spells as well. You're not scared to use them. You don't use the queen's ability prematurely. You use that freeze, you're prepared for it, and I guess that's a big part of this too, being just content and calm while you're doing the attack.
Absolutely, and you can see there I waited for the building to be down. I think it was the AD there for my royal champion, because then I knew her shield on the 4th building would take down the sweeper that I was talking about at the start. Yep,
and it did go well for sure. You got both of those compartments cleared of defenses. There are some archers left over though. What are you going to do to deal with them? There it is.
I just throw down the poison.
The poison, simple.
I actually shouldn't have done that. I only realized afterwards, like kind of midway through the raid, that there was a witch that popped out there that was separated from the archers. But that's why I dropped some minions here very quickly just to try and take down that witch.
Yeah, and it looks like they did. That's all taken care of already. And now just going through the core of the base with that Grand Warden. Nice use, right? In a good.
And remember I said the thing about exploiting the sweepers? Well, because the sweepers were both pointed one way, what I could do is I sent a hound and a few loons in at 10:30 to take down that section with the Inferno and the Eagle very cheaply. I think I used 1 haste, 1 freeze. So that's very high value. Anytime you see something like that, where you can just send, again with a LaLo, if you just send a few loons in, it's a no-brainer.
Now, I have a question. I noticed you're using those super wall breakers. What do you do when super wall breakers are not at your disposal, when you don't have them, because it's an every other week type thing? Do you just go with straight up wall breakers?
Yes, and that would have been, on this attack, it definitely wouldn't have made a difference because the wall break didn't require a freeze. But for example, if that Inferno at 12 had been on multi, I would have required a freeze to get the wall break. So I would have one less spell. Okay,
so it's obviously huge value in being able to use the super wall breakers.
Absolutely, yes. And even if you're not dealing with splash, like a scatter or a multi or a wizard tower, so in theory, it's a less risky wall break. It's still good to have the super wall breaker because you can just put it in and focus on your funnel. You don't have to worry about small bombs, spring traps, any of that stuff.
Yeah, I love that thing, and I wish we could have it every week, maybe one day. But I know that you have one more attack for us. Let's hop on over to that war, that attack, so you could break it down. So we're looking at the third and final base. It's actually Crunch's base, if you guys know him, another streamer for Clash of Clans. What are you seeing here? This is more of a typical base that I would see, or a style that I would see more often.
So you're right. This is definitely more towards what you'd call an anti-3 base rather than a teaser or an anti-2, just with a more centralized town hall. So what I see here is a few things. Again, the sweepers. You can see it right there. They're both pointing away from the north side of the base, from the 12 o'clock area. So I know that I don't have to worry about them messing up my LaLo. I can just deploy and not have to worry about it. So that's the very first thing. The sweepers also aren't covering the Royal Champion. Do you see her at 10 o'clock?
Yep.
So I can just send in a blimp there with something in it. It could be anything. I think in this case, I used a dragon, 5 loons. And I know that that's gone, right? The Royal Champion's gone, the Wiz Tower's gone, the single's gone. And you see that cuts my pathing perfectly to bring in my LaLo from kind of 11:30 and then again clockwise around the base. The other thing I see is there is a very cheap, easy wall break for the multi-inferno wizard tower and AD at kind of 4:30. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Sui there, going to do the blimp for the RC, and then I'm just going to LaLo from 11:30 around to 3 o'clock.
Well, you made that sound pretty easy. Let's actually see you do it. Let's do that now.
Okay, so I'm using a baby drag and just to funnel my heroes the correct way. And again, like we talked about the previous, if I had regular wall breakers, I would need to use a freeze here because you can see there's a multi, 2 ground expos, which could target wall breakers. There's a bomb tower, an archer tower. There's a lot of, and there's a wizard tower. So there's a lot of splash there.
Right. Man, that wall breaker.
So I'm popping
crazy.
The king. Yeah, popping the king early just to make sure he clears all that stuff so there's no chance of my queen walking.
Yeah, she's getting good value right there.
Yeah. So I'm waiting for the best moment to pop my queen. So I did that because she was stepping into a lot of damage and I needed to make sure that building went down. And now you can see the blimp coming in. I bring a clone for the loons here just to make sure nothing strange happens. And I knew that I kind of had the spells to spare, which isn't always the case, obviously. It'd be lovely if it was.
Yeah, that's an expensive spell slot, so you must have been confident.
And then starting the LaLo. Now, I did get a little worried in this attack because my warden was interesting, let's just say that. I dropped him, as you can see, at kind of 12:30, and he runs away from most of the loons. Unfortunately, the warden AI has been a bit tricky recently. Now, one thing that's very different about this attack is I didn't bring a Skelly spell, even though I had no plan to kill the queen. And the reason is because I knew I'd have a lot of minions based on how the ADs are set up, and I knew I could Rage Warden the minions to kill the queen. So that's not something I do often.
But you still had a plan. You had your plan there in place, and
yes,
that's important.
Yes.
All right, and your champion's coming through. Did you know that Tesla farm was there?
No, I didn't, and I wasn't planning to drop my champion there. I had to adjust on the fly. You see, I brought in those extra loons and a freeze for the scatter because I wanted to drop the champion in on the archer tower. That's going to be the last defense to go down now. If you look, that's where I wanted to drop her, and I wanted her to go in and get the. Did her or him? Never sure with the royal champion.
It's her.
And then I wanted the royal champion to go get the scatter, but because that Tesla farm was going to mess it up, I had to kind of tweak it a bit, use the last freeze, and bring some loons in to take down the scatter.
Okay, and again, thinking on the fly, and that's what makes solid players stand out from just your average players. You're able to make these changes on the fly, and even though you're giving us all these pro tips on how to do this strategy, you still had to think on the fly for yourself when you were doing the attack, which is something that you just have to get used to and practice for in the best ways through friendly challenges and continuously trying out these attack strategies. Any other tips that you want to share that make you successful with this strategy outside of looking at a base and looking at the army and that kind of stuff?
I think the main thing is, I mean, you just said, use FCs and practice, and that's absolutely true. But also, it's always good to have a backup plan, both for the town hall in a one-hit format. Obviously, I know not everyone does one-hit formats, but it's always good to have a backup plan for the town hall. And it's always good to have a backup plan for an awkward Tesla farm. Like for example, like what just happened there. Like that Tesla farm is the last place I expected it, which is very good building on Crunch's behalf. But then you have to adapt, and the only way to adapt is if you have you have your core plan, and then you have 2 or 3 sort of variations on what you can do mid raid with, say, your royal champion or a free spell, or there's a variety of different things.
But my man, this was a great video, and I think people are really going to value from watching it and having you break it down a little bit more in depth than I usually do on the channel. So again, thank you so much for coming through. Remember guys, we are representing for Space Station Gaming, who are doing amazing things in Clash of Clans right now. I mean, how are you guys feeling as members of Space Station Gaming, as the pro players? Do you have a good vibe? Are you feeling really good about how things are going?
It's really nice just to have support. I mean, one thing I always did when it was a sort of player-run leagues, I was always, a clan leader, a clan co-leader, and having all of the logistical stuff just done for us makes it so much better.
Yeah,
I can't tell you how stressful it was, being responsible for a war plan, being responsible for an attack. But yeah, it's so nice just to have to attack and not have to worry about tournament logistics, support, all that kind of stuff.
Where can everyone find you? I know that you got a handle over on Twitter. I'm going to pop it up on the screen and I'm going to link it down below. What I want you guys to do is to go on over and give him a follow on Twitter so he can get a little bit of that love from you guys as well. Do you want to share that Twitter with us?
Yeah, sure. It's at @SSG_John.
Sounds pretty easy. Again, guys, it'll be linked down below. John, thanks so much for coming through today. I want to do this again with you soon when you have another strategy or more examples of this one. I think it's great for the community, so thank you so much for coming on today.
No, my pleasure. Thanks very much for having us.
No problem, man. But guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Again, let me know down below your thoughts, your questions, or anything that you may have regarding these attacks, and if you want to see more. But we're out of here for today. Make sure you check out this video before you go. Remember, take care, guys, and be good.